Thank you for tuning into Illuminate by Meritto this fine afternoon. I'm Parthu Naraju, Manager Customer Success, and I've joined from our newly opened office in Hyderabad. Together with me, I have Hemant Badoria, who's the Product Manager, and Gokul Ravichandran, who's an Associate Manager Customer Success. Hemant has joined us from our HO in Delhi, and Gokul has joined us from our office in Chennai. So, Gokul, how's the weather in Chennai?
Hey, Hemant, hey, Parthiv, this is very pleasant and sunny over here. How's the weather over there?
It's a little cloudy. Seems like the sun wants to be a part of Illuminate today from Chennai, right? Jokes apart, we would like to just see who all the audience here we have are basically from the institutions that are offering ODL and online programs. To all the audience, there might be a quick poll somewhere on your screen. I just want you all to choose the right option that is applicable to you. We'll just wait for 2 or 3 seconds for you to cast your answers, and then we'll go forward. Right. So I see that 83% of all the audience today are from the institutions that offer ODL and online programs. But the main question is, are you up to date with all the necessary updates that UGC has got? If not, this webinar is for you. Before we go forward into the topic and all, I would like to highlight a little about what Meritto is all about and what Illuminate is all about. Right. So, for those who don't know, Meritto is the operating system for student recruitment and enrollment worldwide, trusted by over 1,000+ education institutions from edtech companies to higher ed organizations. We've been we've been streamlining processes from sales, marketing, admissions, finance, operations, and whatever's possible, under the bucket of admissions. We empower 1 billion student engagements annually, process 100 million inquiries, and manage 5 million applications on an average. And for those who have tuned in for the first time into Illuminate by Meritto webinar, it's a series of live webinars where we bring you the latest insights, best practices, and technology on everything about student recruitment and enrollment. We host speakers from Meritto alongside industry experts, thought leaders, and decision makers from the entire world of education, offering unparalleled insights for the education industry. Every week and fortnightly, we connect here to discuss the common challenges faced by the education institutions and many industry insights. And we at Meritto try to cater those problems with the easiest solution possible. Right. So the topic for today's discussion of the webinar is, being DEB compliant. Over the past month or two, all the institutions that are offering ODL and online programs, have been worried about the same thought about, what is being DEB compliant, how does it actually function, how is it going to affect their admission cycle and all of that. We are here today to discuss all of those with you and clear all your thoughts, right? So before we deep dive into this discussion, I just want to summarize the entire webinar into 3 parts. In the first part, we will be covering what DEB is all about, why is being DEB compliant crucial for the education institutions, what are the different set of guidelines that UGC has put in place for an institution to be DEB compliant, how can an institution perform audits and all, and how is Meritto coming into picture and how is it streamlining the entire journey of the student and also the institution in terms of the unified platform, which is now DEB compliant. In order to do that, I would like to invite Gokul to take us forward with what DEB is all about and why is it actually necessary.
Parthiv, before moving further, don't you think there is a question which is coming into my mind? How many are confident that higher education are fully aligned with the DEB compliance mandate which is being introduced in the last month? What do you think about this, Parthiv?
Probably most of the institutions that are offering are aware of what this is. But in case if anybody in the audience is not sure about what DEB compliance is all about, don't worry, we have got you covered on this webinar. Right? Yeah. Google, you can take it forward.
So thank you, Parthiv and Hemant, for your insights over here. Parthiv, you did cover on what we'll be doing in this webinar and what is the brief about and the major pointers. For that, the first point over here is like what exactly is DEB. So Parthiv and Hemant, do you know that there are 20 lakh students who have enrolled in the online and distance learning program offered by the higher education institutes in India? And there is an ever-growing demand for this kind of courses where even few analysts and pundits accept that this kind of sector is going to grow at 23%. That is almost like 4 lakh students in a year. That's a huge number, don't you think? That should be a statutory body, right, Hemant?
Definitely, Gokul. And after listening to the number, and I was very curious. That this is the number. This is the amount of people are who are actually looking for a ODL or the online learning programs.
Yeah. So that should be definitely a statutory body which should frame rules and regulations and also make sure that such rules and regulations are implemented across all higher education institutes offering such program. So this is where the Distance Education Bureau, also known as DEB, comes into picture, where it is a pressurized body that oversees, regulates the distance education and online program across India. It ensures that the education standards are maintained and the students receive quality education, whether they are attending in person as per physical classes or learning remotely. Don't you think, Parthiv and Hemant, that if I'm going to pursue an online program, I should be treated equal to the person who is pursuing the classes physically?
Right,
Definitely.
absolutely, Gokul.
Yeah, so this is where the DEB ensures that the standard of education, the rules and regulations, everything is maintained for the online program and gives the equal standard to both physical and online programs. So moving further, why does DEB matter for our institution over here, right? So Hemant, can you guess a number of institutes which are recognized by DEB to offer online or distance education program?
I just read it was around 70, if I'm not wrong.
You're very close by Hemant. Parthiv, do you want to take a wild guess?
Probably 77.
No, you have reached a little bit farther. Actually, there is only 66 higher education institute in India that are recognized by UGC and are entitled to offer 371 programs out of which 136 are UG program and 235 are PG program. So doesn't it increase the curiosity that why only such less number of institute is there and why only such less number of program is actually recognized by the institute, Hemant?
Definitely, Gokul.
Yeah. So
Uh,
because of the growing demand and the restrictions placed on certain type of programs which cannot be offered in online or physical mode, there is a possibility that only certain programs are recognized. So this recognition is centrally governed by DEB. Hence, DEB is a compliant institution which acts as a solo point of contact and make sure that all the programs offered are at par, and it builds a trust among the students so that they seek on to pursue more and more online or distance learning program. So this is all about what DEB means for the institution. Hemant, do you want to take it forward and explain about what is actually DEB ID is and how do we get one?
Yes, definitely, Gokul. Thanks. So, as we have already understood what DB is and how it is important for an institution to be a DB compliant, and what actually it is giving a benefit to a candidate or in fact to an institution if they are a DB compliant. Now, let's come to the main point, that is a DB ID. So, DB integration won't work without the DB ID. So DB ID is just a unique identification number or the code which is being assigned by the DAB to every applicant who are willing to take or applying for the ODL or the online programs. And do you know, for the DAB ID, ABC ID is important, which is an academic bank of credit ID. And Google, would you like to answer what ABC ID is?
Sure, Hemant. ABC ID, also known as Academic Bank of Credit or APAR ID, is a 12-digit number that is assigned to each individual student who is going to register for the first time. And this number is unique for each individual. So this is to make sure that the students, wherever placed in India, they enroll in any graduate or postgraduate program for an online or distance education. Their education is certified, and also they are able to kindly store all their documents such as degrees, diplomas, certificates, or training details or co-curricular achievements, which they have done during the time of study in that particular online or distance education program. The ABC is also a virtual storehouse that contains the information about the credits earned by the student throughout the learning journey. It also gives an opportunity to transfer the credits from Institute A to Institute B if in future the candidate wants to pursue and complete his education from Institute B. So this is kind of a dream project of our government where it gives a mobility to students and also makes sure that the applicants are job ready, and it also simplifies the verification of academic records for the institution purpose. So Hemant, so this is all about ABC ID. So I'm curious on how ABC ID is going to get linked with DEB ID.
Yes, but before that, we need to have the understanding how, as a candidate, I can generate the ABC ID. And you would surprised to know that with my Aadhaar card or the candidate's Aadhaar card, a candidate would be able to generate their ABC ID or the APAR ID, and this ID might be useful for the institute to track the candidate academic record, enrollment status, and other than that, they could also get an information which is related to the candidate, that is their date of birth, gender, and in fact the address, which might be useful for the distance education program. Additionally, to complete the whole flow in the DAB, once the DAB ID is being generated and submitted, it is the institute responsibility wherein they have to submit the course details to the DAB ID, and basis on which the everyone would be notified about the course details what the candidate have chosen also. Now let's look upon how I as a candidate can generate my ABC ID as well as the DAB ID. So, moving further, firstly, I have to navigate to the ABC portal, which I can do by going to the Google and searching for ABC ID. On the ABC portal, I have to navigate to the student section by going into my account. Then, with my Aadhaar or the mobile number which is being linked to my Aadhaar, I can generate the ABC ID. Firstly, I have to enter the mobile number and the PIN. After entering the mobile number and the PIN, I have to click on the sign on button, on which then I would be receiving a 6-digit OTP, and then I have to enter that OTP over here. After entering the OTP, I have to click on the sign in button. Then I would be straight away landed over the ABC portal, wherein I would be getting a APAR ID or the ABC ID, which is highlighted on the right side of the screen. And you could just copy and paste, copy this APAR ID or the ABC ID, then navigate to the DB portal, which again you can navigate from the Google. After clicking on the DB portal, you would be landed on the DB page, where you have to define the ABC ID which you have generated previously. After pasting the ABC ID and clicking on the submit button, here you would be getting a DAB unique ID, which would be a ID which would help a candidate for their admissions in the ODL or the online programs.
Yeah, but the process seems very easy, right?
Definitely, it's just a two-step thing. And in fact, if you want to have an understanding about the candidate flow, the candidate have to just follow 4 steps. That's
Yeah.
it. The first step is creating a ABC ID, which we have already seen. The second step is the creating a DB ID. For that, we would be requiring the ABC ID. And once we have the DB ID, then while they have to choose their preferred course. Let's say if I'm a candidate, I want to do the BBA from any institute X or Y. I just while filling up the application form, I have to enter the DB ID in the application form and submit that. And basis on their process, which includes the post application processes, or maybe some various interviews or maybe exam and all. After once I have cleared all my processes, then I would be asked to pay the token fees. Once I have paid the token fees and confirmed the admission in a particular course, then institute have to push their data to the DAB. So this is all in all about the candidate flow. Uh, Now we have the understanding about the candidate flow. So Gokul and Parthik, what do you think? Don't you Are you excited to understand to know about the institute flow? Or else, if they as the number is only 66, there are many institutes which are not the DB recognized. So don't you think what more things what our institute can do to be a DBA compliant?
Definitely, Hemant, if I was on the institute side, I would be more curious to know, like, how can I go into that number of institute which is actually providing the distance and online education. So my goal would be to increase that number from 66 to 67, and if that one increases, that should be my institute.
Definitely. So,
Right. Yeah, so I get into picture now because I want to focus on, what does the institution actually need to do to be DB registered, to be DB compliant, to follow all the process and all of that. But before moving further, for all the audience who have tuned in a little late, so far we have discussed what DB is, why is it necessary, and what is the student flow. Right, going forward now we'll be focusing on what the institution needs to do in order to be DB compliant. Now UGC has aligned certain parameters, certain guidelines, basing on which an institution can apply for DB registration, further getting DB verified. Now it's equally important to get DB verified, so that all your programs are also DB verified, and also it's going to gather some audience for you, right? So moving further, we have a certain pointers to be discussed in terms of the guidelines which DB has laid down. The first one includes the institutional infrastructure, which includes the physical infrastructure and technological infrastructure, right? In terms of physical infrastructure, it basically has got about all the all the facilities that you provide to your students on the campus. In terms of technological infrastructure, it basically talks about even the online even the people who have registered for online courses have the same resources available, similar to the people who are already on campus. Next is the program quality, which includes your curriculum design, your course approval, and the faculty, right? In terms of curricular design, it basically checks out if your courses are regularly in line with the industry trends, if they are relevant to what the industry is seeking currently in the market. Now the course approval basically means all your courses being DEB compliant, being DB verified. Now the faculty basically comprises of what kind of vintage faculty do you hold in your institution, right? Now the third point is the student support, which includes the learning resources, the academic support, and the student engagement, which again fall under a part of physical infrastructure that is available to the students. The fourth point is the assessment and evaluation. It basically depends on the fairness and transparency that you carry out in terms of the examinations that are being conducted, in terms of evaluation of all the students. It needs to be streamlined for the online students and also for the students who are on campus, and also on the continuation evaluation patterns. Now different institutions follow different evaluation patterns, in terms of the test being conducted, the model test being conducted, the final exams, and all of that. All of those also needs to be aligned to this. Now, the fifth point is the governance and monitoring, which includes institutional governance and compliance monitoring in terms of the guidelines, additional guidelines which are set up by UGC for DEB management. Now, the sixth point is the financial management in terms of fee structure and budget allocation. Now, this budget allocation mainly revolves around what all resources are being provided to the students in terms of the e-learning guides, in terms of the faculty's availability, and also in terms of the infrastructure, labs, and all the facilities that are provided. Right. Now, the seventh point is the legal and ethical compliance, basically adhering to all the compliances related to whatever governing body you fall into, whether it is UGC, whether it is AICT, or any other governing body for that matter. The eighth point is the outreach and admissions. It basically includes the student admission process that is being followed at your institution in terms of having ethical marketing practices, and also how outreach activities are being performed. Just for the reference of all the audience, we have just jotted down all of these guidelines into a simple screen. If anybody is interested, you can just go ahead and take a screenshot of it. It would help you segregate these jobs among all the teams that are available at your institution. We'll just wait for a few seconds before we switch off to another slide so that everybody gets a snapshot of this.
Oh, Parthiv, there's a lot of information over here. I thought going from 66 to 67 was very easy for me, but seems like there is a lot of process which needs to be followed, right?
Right, Gokul. In fact, all of these guidelines are also necessary when you're conducting DEB audits, which we'll be discussing as we move further.
Yeah.
But for the institutions, it's equally necessary, to have a clear understanding of each of these steps, so that even the audits will get easier for them at a later point of time. And even if there are any minor changes that are being done by UGC, it would also be easy for the institutions to make necessary changes at their end. Right.
Parthiv and Gokul, we are missing one point here. Don't we
Yeah.
think we should be also telling that registration is also the important part, and it
Yeah.
is where they have to fill in the application form and all. So, Parthiv, would you
Right.
like to take forward?
Yeah, Gokul, why don't you take it forward?
Sure, Parthiv and Hemant. So as you saw that the previous slide, Parthiv had quickly walked through us the guidelines and all, what needs to be done and what not, what is open parameters which DE will be evaluating, and all that part. But before that, institute need to register online to provide the distance program or online education program. So just a quick tip, the registration for this session, that is the July cohort, is already closed. For January cohort, they will be opening the registrations pretty soon. So all our institute partners are advised to stay updated with the information on the DEB portal, right? So once in the registration form, they'll have the basic information about the institute, like where is the institute belonging to, who is the registrar, who is the like the contact person, who is the faculty names, who will be course-wise faculty names, who will be taking out the accreditations of those faculty, so on and so forth. There will be a multiple parameters which needs to be keyed in and filled to the application. Once this application is filled in, the institute needs to make sure that within 10 working days, that application is notarized and submitted using an affidavit. I'm sure the institutes are already aware about this, that few programs like engineering, medical, law, pharmacy, nursing, etc. cannot be offered in a distance or online modes. So they need to make sure that those kind of programs are refrained from offering, because this is a pretty sure lot of practical components involved, and currently our this DEB wants that only certain programs to be given in the online and distance mode. Also, DEB periodically updates its guideline, so institutes must stay informed about any changes to maintain the compliance. So Hemant, can you take over and explain the important pointers to be followed by the institute, so that they can be compliant ready and make sure that they add their name in the institutes offering distance and online education?
Sure, Gokul. So, over this slide, I would be telling you briefly about the steps which we have already discussed. There are four main key things which are required, which institute have to take care to be DEB compliant. The first step is the eligibility criteria, wherein they have to fulfill the guidelines, which include certain categories, which Parthiv have already told you. That includes the institutional infrastructure, program quality, student support, assessment and evaluation, governance and monitoring, financial management, legal and ethical compliance, and lastly, the outreach and the admission. And the second step is the registration process, wherein as an institute, they have to fill in the online application form. Once they submit the application form, they have to take the hard copy and attach and also collect the relevant documents. And they have to send the documents to the DEB within the 10 working days. The third step is the quality assurance. That is, once the course has been DB recognized, then assuring the quality at par is at most important, and it would be at par with the DEB guidelines. And lastly is the documentation, wherein they have to maintain a detailed records about the compliance activities, or which are very much crucial for the DEB audits. Uh, Gokul, would you like to take forward in which you would be telling about the DEB audits?
Yes, Hemant. So in the meantime, Parthiv and Hemant, I have a quick question for you both, right? And like we do have our internal reviews and all, right? So Parthiv and Hemant, like how many days before do you prepare for this kind of reviews?
Uh, to be very frank, 2 days before the review.
Parthiv, what about you?
Almost in similar lines.
Right. So unlike us, the institutes don't have the liberty to just prepare 2 days before the reviews. Rather, they need to start way ahead. That is almost 6 months before the DB this thing. They need to prepare for the audit, right? So when the DEB person are going to come to the campus, they'll have a predefined date. So they need to make sure that they conduct a regular self-assessment and they are compliant with the DEB latest guidelines which was released. And this they need to start almost 6 months before the audit. So next is the documentation part. So before 6 months, whatever the audit and whatever information they are going to find, they need to document it in a well maintained format, and that document should be retrievable as and when required. So this is going to happen month on month, and then they need to make sure that whatever guidelines have been given by DEB are being adhered to, and they need to tick the boxes. Okay, this is guideline number 1, I have maintained it. This is guideline number 2, I have done it. So if they have to do it on month, and then they need to generate a report every month, and this report needs to be stored in a way which is easily accessible. And whenever the audit is coming for, they should be showing this kind of documents to them, right? Then is the staff training. This is a very critical point of DEB concern, where the staff should be well aware of what is the compliances are, what kind of the rules and regulations which needs to be followed, what is the infrastructure requirement, what is the course requirement. So unlike the physical classes, online programs or distance program will have their own infrastructure requirement. So all these things, the staffs are well trained of how to handle those kind of infrastructure and make sure that they are also DEB compliant, right? So this is also a key part where DEB notices like how the staffs are trained, and what can be further be improved so that the regulations can be improvised and they can give a better quality of education. Then the open communication is one more aspect where they need to communicate to the Department of the DEB Distance Education Bureau, where they will be telling that, okay, you have released such and such compliances requirement. We have adhered to such and such compliance requirement. One such compliance requirements for now is integrating DEB ID in their admission process, right? So once the our institute partners actually make sure that they have integrated DEB ID, they need to inform to the authorized person stating that we have done this process, and now from now on all the application form will be streamlined and will have the DEB ID, right? And also institute needs to be make sure that they are proactive in nature, and also make sure that any complaint or any queries raised by the students or in fact by the governing body is addressed to in the audit, right? So make sure that this is adhered to and is followed diligently, so that they are among the list of established organization that is able to provide distance and online education. So Hemant, I'm curious to know how is Meritto helping our esteemed clients in being DEB compliant, right?
Definitely, Gokul. So, Gokul, before moving further, let us first conclude what we have discussed till now. We have discussed what DEB is, how important it is for an institution to get DEB compliant. Then we have understood about how to generate the ABC ID and the DEB ID, and we have also understood what for an institute, if they want to be a DEB compliant, what all steps they have to follow, that is maintaining or like following the guidelines, then filling up the registration form, then lastly maintaining the records and documentation for the DEB audits. Now in this now further we would be understanding how as a Meritto what we are doing to be a DEB compliant. So as you all know, DEB for Meritto DEB compliant software is not just a software like not about fetching the details from the DEB and then sending out the details. In either it's a unified platform or to which is covering the candidate's journey from A to Z. That is, if I as a candidate want to pursue DBA from any university or institution, then searching that institution on the Google, then filling up the inquiry form, then basis on the inquiry form, if I'm interested, then filling up the application form wherein I would be getting a detail to fill in the DB. Then once the application form is submitted, then going through conducting the post application process, which include the exam, then interview, then vet PI, then to paying the token fees. And once the candidate is enrolled to a particular program, then pushing the data to the DAV. So in and all, as a Meritto or DB compliant is a unified platform through which our institute can institute DEB integration or the flow can be taken care of. Now, further, I would request Parthiv to take care from it.
Right. Thank you, Hemant. This is another interesting part which most of our clients would be really interested in, as to what is Meritto exactly doing, to resolve this particular conflict, if I may say, right? Because this is something which has been brought in the middle of the session, and it's equally important for all the institutions to stay aligned with the UGC's guidelines, so that their admissions are going to be validated for the upcoming years as well. Right. So that is why we have introduced the Meritto's DEB compliant admission software, wherein it is purposely built to seamlessly integrate the DEB compliance into your institution's ODL and online programs. Right. And also the admissions from the start to being, like Hemant mentioned, from A to Z, starting from a lead entering into the system to the token fees. It's all completely handled over Meritto, and we'll mostly be eliminating all the manual handling that is happening, and this would also reduce the potential disruptions that you might be observing. Right, Hemant and Gokul, why don't you take us forward through snapshots of what we have developed for our clients?
Sure, definitely, Parthiv. So first thing is the customizable application form. Now in the Meritto, we have introduced the DB Quick Links, which would be the part of the unified solution, in which it totally depends on the user where they want to keep the DAB fields in the application form. It's very simple. Like it's a quick list. By simply drag and dropping the fields, they could configure the fields over the application form. And in fact, this field would the user would also be able to configure the various attributes in the sense that is setting the condition of minimum and maximum characters, making it mandatory or non-mandatory, then what are the special characters which are allowed for a particular field, then various validation error. In addition to that, users have the flexibility to configure these fields into the resummation. Before moving further, Gokul, do you know about the what resubmission is?
Definitely, Hemant. Resubmission is a very powerful feature of Meritto. So I would like to demonstrate here with an example. So as you're aware that now DEB ID is a mandate for the institution to collect. And I'm sure the July cohort, many students have already registered and enrolled with the institute, right? So they would have already filled out the application and they would have already enrolled with them with the institute. But as you mentioned, this is a unified platform where we collect all the data in one place. A resubmission allows us to and particularly enable any field which was not submitted previously by the student. So for example, if you're going to add a DEB ID field in the application form and any student in the past who have already submitted the application have not submitted this field, I can enable this field from the backend from the institute user, and then I can collect the DEB ID for all the students who have already filled out the application. Not only this DEB ID, I can get the information regarding any field which is already present in the form and the student who have not already filled in. But also to state another example, when I would have filled out the application, that time I would have not received my final semester mark sheet or my UG degree. But by the time I start my online program or the classes commence, but by that time I would have my degree or the final mark sheet. So institute can easily enable this kind of fields which was already submitted and they need to update anything. So the students will come there and only fill in the information which is required, and then they'll submit the form again. So this resubmission is going to be a very helpful feature in especially collecting the DEB ID for the institutes. Don't you think, Hemant and Parthiv?
Definitely, Gokul. Adding to your point, if I talk about the feasibility which we are providing to the applicant, in order to fill in the details, they simply just have to log into their student admission portal or the candidate dashboard. Over there, a button would be enabled. That button is totally a configurable, which basis on the institution requirement, they can give the name to that button. And once they click on that button, a form would open up wherein the DB fields would be enabled. They can just simply enter the details and submit that. And with that, the institution would get the DAB ID, and basis on which they could proceed, they could process it for the further processes. Then the second point is the real-time verification. Uh, Parthiv and Gokul, what do you understand? Like, what do you think from the verification, DEB ID verification?
Probably this government generated ID, which we call it as DEB, needs to be verified somewhere from a government portal so that these details can stay valid for the entire application time. Right.
Definitely, Atif. So, as we all know, DB ID is a mandatory step for an institution. That is to submit the candidate details or the course details while they have enrolled. So, as we previously covered, that a user can configure the DAB ID field anywhere in the form, right? Now, there are the instances, right? If I, as a candidate, if I do not know whether I'm jotting down the correct DEB ID or not. Let's say at present the DEB ID is of 16 characters, and when I'm filling up the application form, I just write 1 2 3 and submit the application. Now it would be very difficult for an institution to just push the data and again asking the candidate to fill in the details, right? So here we have brought in a solution wherein while filling up the application form and entering the DAB ID, we have brought in a one button called a fetch DAB details, clicking which on a real-time basis, we would be fetching the details from the DAB portal or the DAB data repository. And from that, we would get to know whether the entered DAB is correct or not. In addition to that, when we are fetching the data from the DAB repository, we are additionally getting many field data, like which includes the date of birth, gender, and XYZ. If an institute want to store that field in a particular in a field or so, or they want to have a view about the same, it's very simple for an institution. They just have to go to the application manager. They have to add on the columns. In fact, they could also view the what is the status of the DAB ID. That is, if let's say they want to bifurcate that how many candidates have successfully fetched the DAB ID, by simply applying the advanced filter, they would be able to filter out that information as well. And in fact, for the further process, they can configure the automated workflow wherein a basis once the condition is fulfilled, then the data would be pushed for that verified or the successfully fetched candidate to the DAB portal. In addition to that, there are many chances. Like DB is very new to everyone, right? And in fact, there are many candidates or applicant who have zero idea about the DAB. Now, since it's a mandatory thing for an institution and everyone, so it's like we need to educate them. Like if you haven't generated the DAB ID, we have given them the option like wherein after clicking which they would be redirected to the DB portal wherein after entering the ABC ID they could fetch their DAB unique ID, and that DAB unique ID can further be used by for the application processes. Moving further, I would request Parthiv to take you from here.
Right. Gokul, why don't you take it over from me?
Yes, Parthiv and
Document you are an expert under document management.
Yeah, I was about to say that because document management is something kind of which I have experienced in real hand experience of it. So Hemant and Parthiv, I'm sure we all have heard this statement that this class is worse than the fish market from our teachers, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this was when the students used to attend the classes physically. Now imagine the plight of in the higher education institutes for offering the distance and online education program, right? They don't even see the students physically. So how do they make sure that whatever information they are giving it is of the correct nature, and I'm sure we both, like you both have watched the Three Idiots movie, right? There is one important character called as Rancho Das Chachar, who kind of forged the document and submitted and even got the degree. I'm sure if Meritto was there at that point of time, they would have easily identified that he has forged the documents. Don't you think, Hemant and Parthiv?
Definitely, Gokul.
Yeah.
Right.
So Meritto is offering a unified solution to the institution who are offering the distance education or online education. In fact, for any institutes to actually view and verify the documents which the students are submitting in their application form. As all the higher education institute have their own requirement, they might collect any number of documents, right? So that could be, let's say 10th mark sheet, 12th mark sheet, photograph, signature, or any number of documents which is required to verify their identity. Could be Aadhaar card, could be parents proof of income, or any kind of documents which is being uploaded by the student. So Meritto provides a powerful solution to make sure that whatever documents the institute is asking from the student, whatever the student is uploading is of genuine nature. So when the student completes the application form and institute user is able to see the documents, they can see the document by clicking on the eye icon which is being displayed in this image. They will be able to see the document which the student has actually uploaded. If the institute feels that this document is not genuine, or if this document needs to be re-uploaded, they can mark the document verification status as pending. So when this pending is being marked, the student will get an information stating that you need to re-upload the XYZ document. So this way, the institute makes sure that the documents which are uploaded are of the genuine nature and authenticity is verified. So isn't this a very powerful feature which will help to solve the plight of the institute, Parthiv?
But Gokul, what I feel is, this is all to a level, but the major point to be discussed is, all of these online students, right, they're not going to visit the campus until they do not get the degree certificate, right? In
Yeah.
between, there are a lot of fees payments that needs to be made,
Yes.
right? Can you throw some light on how is all of that handled?
Definitely, Parthiv. Paying fees from the application form is as simple as ordering food from Zomato and Swiggy. Students, with the unified solution, students have the possibility of paying the fees via various modes like UPI, credit card, debit card, net banking. Not only that, Meritto also provides a inbuilt option of applying for a student loan. So they have the loan option where the student doesn't have to go to the bank. The bank is coming to them. So it's acting like an aggregator for the students where all the banking institutes which are providing loan will be listed out along with the rates at which they are going to charge. Students are free to choose whichever bank they want to apply. And once the student selects, they will have to submit few more documents to the bank and they are ready to go. They don't even have to go to physically to the banks and apply for loan. Not only this, students also get an easy monthly installment option where this is called something called as pay later, where the entire amount which is required for that particular fee, a particular course can be paid in monthly installment. But the institute might have a question that what about my finances, right? So this pay later option is only for the student. The whatever the course fee is entirely which is configured will be deposited to the institute account. So they don't want to worry about the finances and the students will keep on paying monthly installments. So not only this, if by mistake, if some candidates have are nearby located to the college and they come offline to pay the fees, institute also has an option of marking the payment as cash or offline, even DD if they are bringing DD. So this kind of payment option gives a flexibility for the institute as well as the students, so that they don't wander on and try arranging for funds. Everything will happen in a jiffy with this kind of a unified solution. Don't you think, Parthiv, like this is a very powerful feature, and with this the entire student's life cycle will be completed using a single login?
No, Gokul, that is where I want you to stop.
Okay.
Because that is not where the journey is entirely being stopped, but there is something more to it, right?
Okay.
Which most of the institutions are not, focusing much on to, so as far as concerned with the DEB compliance in place, right? It's not just about, people filling in their applications, fetching the data from DEB and pushing the data back to DEB and all of that. At the same time, it's equally important for the institutions to get all of this enrolled data ported back to DEB's portal.
Yes.
Right, it is equally important for them to retrack all of that information back when the certificates are being generated and the admissions are being closed down of a particular session. And Meritto does that job pretty easily. It pushes all of the enrolled data to UGC server, which will be handled there for the rest of the life cycle, which is similar to a data push being done to an ERP. Right, Hemant, would you like to highlight anything about this part of the ERP integration?
Yes, adding to it, we also have a automated workflow mechanism wherein once the work conditions are put in the workflow, then automatically once the candidate got enrolled to a particular program, the data would be pushed and there is no manual intervention. And in fact, there is one more feature wherein, let's say, if data is missed out or incomplete data is being pushed to the DAB, if user want to push an other set of the data, we have another feature called bulk push, wherein after selecting the applicant, the data would be pushed manually. So in this, we have manual option as well and the automated option.
That's interesting.
Thanks for highlighting, Parthiv, that this whole seminar was actually to push the data back to DEB. I thought by paying the fees, my journey is completed. But in a way, I'm also right. From a student perspective, my journey is completed. Don't you agree, Parthiv?
Right. Yes. As a Ranchor Das started, your journey is completed.
Yeah, man.
Right. For all the audience, Hemant, can you just check up if we have got any queries so far? Because I can see a lot of my clients, putting it on my WhatsApp saying that, hey, we have this query. Can you just answer that over the call?
Sure. Just give me a second. So we have 3 queries. The first one is, do we have any place from where I would be able to view the logs or the data which is being pushed to the DEB after enrollment? Yes, absolutely. We have a page name called API logs, using which a user would be able to view at any point of time what data have been pushed and at what time the data has been pushed. Additionally, over the API logs, users have the flexibility wherein they could filter out the data basis on the application number, mobile number, or the email ID. This is a use case where, let's say, if a user want to look upon that Hemant's data has been pushed to DAB, then by simply just jotting down the Hemant's email ID over the API logs page, they would be able to have that idea. Now, the second question is DAB ID mandatory at first step? Not at all. It totally depends on you, where you want to configure this field. But we need to keep one thing in our mind. We have to keep that field before the candidate is marked as enrolled. Now, the third question is, how would I be able to view that other data has been received by DAB while fetching the details? We have built the system in such a way that at any point of a time, when applicant fetch the details from the DAB, then basis on the institution preference, we can store the data anywhere in the field on the various field, and that can further be viewed from the application manager by just simply adding the columns. In fact, we could filter out the data using the advanced filter. If in case they want to download that data, we have a functionality called download application, wherein we can download the data in a CSV or the Excel format. If there is any other questions which you want us to answer, you can simply write it on a Q&A section. We'll wait for another 1 minute, then we can wrap the session. Okay, so moving further, Parthiv, you want to conclude what we have covered till now?
Right. So for the people who have joined in midway, or for the people who might have missed it out somewhere in between, we have covered three major aspects in this particular webinar. One is, what is DEB and why is it necessary for every institution offering an ODL and online programs necessary to be DEB compliant. The second part of this webinar was, what are all the different guidelines that an institution needs to keep in mind while they're applying for DEB compliance. And the third part of it is, how is Meritto going to transform the entire journey with their unified platform, which has been developed and which is DEB compliant right now at this point of time. Right. Hemant, do we have any questions? Or are we good to end the session?
We cannot find any question. We are good to go.
All right. Thank you everybody for joining this session. You can just keep visiting the Illuminate space on Meritto's portal, which is meritto.com/illuminate. And coming up in the next Illuminate, we have a session with the University of Malaysia, wherein we'll be delving deep into the journey of the University of Malaysia, UMK, as it establishes their first dedicated data center facility. This webinar will highlight the innovation, the curriculum design which they have followed up, the cutting edge technology which they have integrated, and the key initiatives that they have taken, which have positioned them as a leader in the data science education. Attendees will also gain insights in terms of how UMK is shaping the future of data science. And for the Indian audience in specific, it would carry a lot of knowledge needed to excel in a rapidly growing environment in the digital landscape. Thank you everybody for joining this webinar and making it a success. I wish you all a wonderful evening. Thank you, Hemant, and thank you, Gokul, for your insights in this webinar.
Thank you,
We can
Partha.
just sign up the call. Bye-bye.